Great to have your company once again on NBL Marketplace. This is where you need to find out all the news and information relating to free agency and a whole bunch of other stuff, which in the last week has just totally exploded. I take a few days off. All of a sudden, Bryce Cotton's back in the NBL. Montrezl Harrell's back in the NBL. And there's a lot of stuff that we need to deal with today. I'm Jack Heverin, Olgun the best newsbreaker in Australian basketball, and Pete Hooley, the man behind Hool's Hearing. Join us on the show once again. And you two, there's a whole stack of stuff going on right now.
Good week for you to have off, Jack. There's not much happening in the free agency off-season landscape, but no, plenty to talk about, really exciting. And it's interesting sitting here as we record this still in May. I am just so excited for the start of the season, but to think about what's still to come, I think there's going to be some big headlines over the next couple of months as well.
In the Adelaide 36ers, my goodness me. I mean, they have been criticised along the way for decision-making or lack of proactivity, whatever you want to call it. They cannot be criticised for the way that they've handled the last couple of weeks of free agency. They have gone bang, bang, bang.
And this was, Jack, this is a team that has been criticised, and I think rightly in the past, for not being able to either retain talent or to attract talent. And when you look at who they've just gotten, obviously the retention of Montrezl Harrell, he's someone who really wanted to return. He liked his time in Adelaide. But Bryce Cotton, someone who we all thought was going to play overseas, we thought might never play for another NBL franchise other than the Perth Wildcats, all of a sudden he goes to their rival just effectively down the road. It's one of the biggest deals that I've ever seen in NBL history.
So just on that, I mean, this is a starting five now that has, well, you guys can map it all out, but Humphries, Vasiljevic, Cotton, Harrell potentially is four of the starting five. From what we're hearing, there's more to come, Pete.
Well, there is, and again, I put out the Hool's Hearing yesterday, but that was more to highlight the level of talent that they're looking for still, right? Everyone would assume, okay, they've got Montrez, they've got Bryce Cotton now, and Olgun can allude to more, I guess, what that means in terms of a salary cap number. But with DJ, Isaac Humphries, and we've also forgotten Flynn Cameron was one of the very big pieces to fall as well. He's going to slot into that and be a really important piece to them. But they're not done yet. These are the kind of talents that they're going to have their eyes on. Are they going to be probably too expensive? Yes, I think they're going to be too expensive. But you also, what can be taken into account in terms of what a currency looks like for the guys I mentioned, the Matt Hurts and the Gary Clarks? They're putting together a championship caliber team. Winning is a nice currency to have as well as the dollars in the bank. So you can't hurt but ask the question. This is what all the good teams do, is just put all the names on the whiteboard, ask the question, gauge the interest, and see what happens.
And Olgun, this is very much your wheelhouse in terms of spend and salary cap and all of the different mechanisms that you can use. But one thing that we should never forget, and the fans of this show should never forget, is you can spend as much as you like. You've just got to be willing to pay the luxury tax on the other side.
And Jack, the thing I appreciated was Grant Kelly, owner of the 36ers, when he had a media conference, he said, we've been a top 2 or 3 spend team over the past couple of seasons. And he was proud of it. And that's something we want. We want owners to be proud of spending. And all it means is that luxury tax bill is going to grow higher and higher. And the fact that someone like Grant Kelly is okay being out there and flaunting that and saying, yes, we will spend to be good, that's something that we want to see in the NBL. If it means retaining talent, if it means Bryce Cotton remains in the NBL. Now, when I look at this roster, first you have Bryce Cotton. The number he's on, I'm told this is the biggest deal in NBL history. It almost speaks for itself that was the case. But that just is the case. It's the largest deal that we've ever seen in the history of this league. And then when you look at the roster they're building, Pete, the names that you put out there, the names that we're hearing that they're chasing, these aren't cheap individuals. And so they're going after a high-level four-man to start next to one of Isaac Humphries and Montrezl Harrell, and that's a conversation that we're going to have until the regular season begins of which one of those big men starts. But they're building a team that, from what I'm seeing right now, when I'm going through the numbers of what guys are more than likely on, this is one of the most expensive roster builds I've ever seen in NBL history. So the Adelaide 36ers are going all out for a title this year, and the proof is in the pudding right now. They're not afraid to spend on getting talent to Adelaide.
Pete, we haven't seen anything to this volume, have we? And to back up Olgun's point about spend and aggression. I mean, the Sydney Kings last year made a lot of splashes when they got Xavier Cooks back, and at that stage, Olgun reported that he was the highest contract in NBL history. But this is a whole different level of aggression and spend that we're seeing here.
It is. And again, Olgun's spot on, and we talk about it. The best talent in the world costs money. You have to pay to be able to keep them here or lure them here to the NBL if they haven't played here before, and the 36ers are doing that. And again, everyone likes to talk about the Kings and the splash they made at the start of free agency with Delhi, Kendrick Davis, you mentioned Xavier Cooks last year. The Kings just understand the rules very well. And the Adelaide 36ers right now, as it stands with the marquee rules and obviously the imports and where Bryce Collins' numbers at, it will hurt their luxury tax for sure. Now, we know that they've come out and said they're going to continue to work and they want to get Bryce Collins' citizenship done. If they can manage to do that, which he hasn't been able to do so far, that changes everything significantly for their salary cap. But until then, they're openly saying that it's going to cost them a lot of money, but that's what the best talent does. They don't come cheap.
Olgun, what are other, just the last one on Adelaide, what are other teams saying about this? I mean, you talk to all the teams and so do you, Pete. They must be, I mean, their hair must be blown back from what's happened in the last 10 days.
Yeah, the Bryce one was interesting because every team, we all thought it. Everyone thought that Bryce was going to Japan or somewhere overseas. Hell, even Bryce thought that before the Adelaide 36ers just started these meaningful conversations with him. So everyone thought he was just going to be out of the league, and all of a sudden he's back. And every NBL team I spoke to, whether it's GMs or head coaches, they're sort of like, damn, like we really have to guard this guy again for an entire season. Like this sucks, and another 3 years at that. And so that was that part of it. The Montrezl Harrell one, there was sort of mixed reviews. A lot of people thought like, oh, they've got this dynamic, high-powered, scoring big. Like that is interesting. We'll see what the fit looks like. Some teams were thinking, all right, well, how is this team going to defend at a high level consistently with the two guards that they have, and really the only sort of defensive personnel they have is Isaac Humphries. Teams around the league don't really regard Montrezl Harrell as some high-level defender, so teams weren't as concerned about the Montrezl Harrell signing as they were about the Bryce one, obviously. But they're looking at this team and they're asking the same question, which is how much are they paying for this roster? Because if this is what they have already signed and they still have one high-level, high-money import to go, man, they're a real chance of hitting that $4 million mark, which I've yet to see in the NBL as far as cash spend goes.
And when it comes to breaking down, once this roster's complete and other rosters and we actually analyze how it looks, the defensive question is going to be a big one. But until then, they continue to bring in offensive talent. Now, I know Ruck has been talking about we might see a year where offensive talent can just win a title. As long as I've been doing this and since I've been diving deeper into the analysis side of it, you have to be a top 4 defensive team if you want to win. Now, could that change? Maybe. I don't see it happening, but we'll discuss all that once the roster's complete with the Adelaide 36ers.
They are a fascinating watch. I mean, Pete, I know you tweeted something about this earlier today, but my phone is in my hand permanently to see what's going to happen next with the Adelaide 36ers. So watch this space, and of course, you'll hear about it on the marketplace, and you can read about it at nbl.com.au and on the NBL app. To the Cairns Taipans tools, all of a sudden things have got very, very interesting with the team from far north Queensland. Up until 3 or 4 days ago, there's been nothing happening with the Taipans, and they've been criticised for that, but things are moving very quickly there.
Yeah, I had a good chat with the Cairns Taipans yesterday, and again, I understand the frustration that all the fans have had. Troy Stone spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, where you can understand there hasn't been any announcements. Now, for 2 reasons, that this has been a big quiet period for Cairns. Firstly, they've been patient because outside of Sydney and Adelaide, the rest of the league's been very patient this free agency period, waiting to see what happens with marquee guys, imports, all of that. We know that the local free agent talent is one thing. They've got 5 locals obviously locked in. But the main point and the reason why this is very exciting for the Cairns Taipans, they're in advanced talks and advanced conversations with private ownership. Now, that changes the entire trajectory of what they're capable of. Those talks are also going hand in hand with then recruiting marquee level talent. This is something the Cairns have never been able to do previously, and not just recruiting it, but potentially retaining it, bringing it back. You think about the marquee level guys that they've seen come through the program and they're not being able to pay. If they get this done, and it seems like more of a when than if, then they can not only just retain them, they might be able to bring them back, even replacing imports or replacing guys with injuries. They haven't been able to do that. Now, speaking to them, they were very simple. They said, we're going all in. We understand that we can't compete and win titles the way it has previously been. We've seen that with the injuries they had last year. This will be a significant change for them and a very exciting one for the whole club and I guess for the whole league, because this then puts them right back in the mix with what they're capable of doing.
They've kind of been in these cycles, haven't they, Olgun, where they're competitive for 1 year and then bottom 2 or 3 for 2 or 3 years after that.
Well, without private ownership, that's almost how you have to operate. You just don't have the funds to operate any other way. Over the past 2 seasons, 2 seasons ago, there was $6,000 over the salary floor. This past season, they didn't even meet the salary floor. So this is the team that just didn't have the capacity to spend because they didn't have private ownership. Pete, with that private ownership seemingly imminent, we've seen around the league new owners come in and they want to have a say on the roster build or the coach or otherwise. We saw it with Tasmania with their new ownership. We've seen it with the New Zealand Breakers with their new ownership. So this new ownership coming into Cairns, it's the reason why we haven't seen a head coach yet. Is because they want to have a say in who that person is. They don't want to buy into an organization like the Taipans and have someone there for 3 years and then have to make a decision on it. They want to say in that. It's the same goes with the players that they bring in. And so the Taipans haven't been sitting on their hands as much as a lot of people think they have been. They've been working out some of these foundational things, which is this private ownership, before they can make those other foundational decisions.
So this would have to change the coaching conversation, wouldn't it? Because a lot of what we've been talking about are first-time coaches or rookie coaches looking for an opportunity. And we've had names like Kerry Williams and Joel Carlew and Jacob Chance, etc. But if you've got private ownership coming in who want to go all in, as you say, Pete, then we have to change our thinking, don't we? Type of coach that they might be looking for.
Look, I asked them about that. They said that the coaching announcement and figuring that out, finalizing that is imminent. It's getting very, very close, but it does go hand in hand with the conversations they're having with one, the private ownership, ticking that off, finalizing that. And same with then what other high level recruiting talent can we then bring in? This is marquee level talent, locals, not just the imports that they could get more money to spend on them as well. The type of coaches that they've interviewed through this process, I'm told are NBA level coaches, G League coaches as well, Europe level coaches. They've gone through it all. But again, all of that goes hand in hand with getting these private ownership over the line, which is why it's taken some time. So credit to them. While everybody's sitting back saying, oh, we're not hearing anything from Cairns, you see the memes kind of poking a stick. They are working diligently. They are working very hard because they understand if they want to be successful and win a title and succeed in this league, this is the next step for them because the rest of the league showing it, Adelaide showing it, the Sydney Kings, the rules are there to be used to your advantage, but it's going to cost money. And that's a really, really exciting move for the Taipans. And the sooner that gets done, the better. But then we're going to start to see, I think, some big names, some big splashes. And for them saying they're going all in, well, I'm just really excited to see what that means.
Let me throw two names at both of you. If we're thinking marquee level, and this is just off the top of my head, this is information that you're bringing to the table right now, Pete. One would be Keanu Pinder. I think that's an obvious one, isn't it, in terms of someone who made his name in Cairns and you would argue played his best basketball in far north Queensland. And the other would be Mitch Creek. And I bring Mitch Creek up. I know that Mitch is on a journey all around the world at the moment and he's taking in different experiences. But when it comes to needle movers and names that resonate in Australian basketball, Mitch Creek is one of those, whether you like him or not. They would be a couple of starting points, wouldn't they?
Well, he's spoken again. I caught up with Mitch Creek probably a month ago, and he's spoken about probably the NBL not being on his radar right now in terms to come back. But you think about if one, they can afford a talent like Mitch Creek and Keanu Pinder, which they will be able to if they get this when they get this private ownership done. You don't think that he would enjoy suiting up for the Cairns Taipans, trying to win them their first title when Adelaide's made a whole big splash right now in the offseason? That little chip on his shoulder would be huge. But the Keanu Pinder one, I mean, you can understand why that would make sense because in years gone past, when they have this talent they just simply can't afford, that changes everything where you can actually go and say, hey, we can now bring you in. You had your best years here. Those conversations I'm sure would happen once that opened up. But it doesn't just stop with those two. Once that door's open, then you open the door to a whole lot of potential different possibilities, marquee level talents. They've got Sam Wardenberg there, and they've got exciting talent with Alex Higgins-Tichu, I think, is going to be an enormous value for them, and some other key local pieces. You get another marquee level talent with 3 high level imports. It opens the door for a Rob Edwards to potentially return because he would be understandably deserving more money. And all of a sudden, they've got 7, 8 key guys who can compete for a title.
Yeah, Jack, the Marquees are interesting because a lot of them are playing overseas, right? Either in Europe, they're on the fringe of the NBA, in Japan, and a lot of them sort of signal that they might not come back to the NBL. But all it takes is the right offer. With Mitch Creek, all I keep hearing is that, yeah, he's enjoying his time overseas and having these experiences. But if the right offer is in front of him, then he is absolutely open to taking it. And I think that goes the same with a lot of people playing overseas, whether that's someone like a Keanu Pinder, who I think is preparing to play overseas, whether that's someone like a Will McDowell-White, who is in the same boat. These guys, these aren't necessarily connected to Cairns, but it's almost every team out there that has an opening that they're either saving for a marquee or they're saving for an import spot. All of these high-level Australians or New Zealanders, and it includes Joe Lualichua Jr., it includes Yanni Wetzel, these guys, includes someone like Jack McVeigh, it includes some of these guys playing in the NBA G League on two-way contracts. These are the openings that may exist around the league that right now we're penciling as imports, but it very well could be a high-level Australian or Kiwi.
This is a game changer for the league, I think, when it comes to Cairns. And I'll try and say this respectfully, but as we have said, they've been on the cycle. So if they're not in a cycle year, they're always competitive and they're always hard to beat. But more often than not, their losing record isn't a great one. If all of a sudden this all comes to fruition, like we're saying, it's going to put some pressure on some other teams, I would say, who have maybe sort of relied on the fact that Cairns won't always be super competitive, because guess what? Now they might be.
And again, these have happened in the past, right? They've always been potentially be able to get towards private ownership, but it seems to have really ramped up this offseason with the way the rest of the league's going, the way that other teams are willing to spend. And again, we keep talking about salary cap. The rules are there to be used to your advantage. So this is the most advanced that they have been, and that's why it's really exciting for the Taipans to be able to do this. I look back at last year. Yes, they finished bottom. But you think about when they all got it together when they were fully healthy, they've started to win a lot of games. Now, if you can also replace a guy who's injured for a significant period of time, or if who's underperforming, they've never been able to do that either. And I'm told that throughout all of this, throughout all those conversations, that Adam Ford has been a big part of those conversations as well. We remember in the release from the Cairns Taipans, their mutual release, they said he was going to play a part in the hiring, not just of the coaching, but of the players as well. This would be the same with the private ownership. He's been an integral part of getting Cairns to the position where they're able to even engage in these conversations in a positive manner. So for all of that reason, I know it's been quiet, but you can't help but be excited with what could transpire. You take out Sydney and Adelaide, the rest of the league's been very patient as well. So they're not that far behind once they lock this in and start to make some moves.
It's going to be a very, very interesting watch with Cairns. And as you say, Pete, it sounds like there's a lot happening very quickly. Just a couple of small ones to finish off. Some news. This is always the challenge when players are overseas and you're trying to rely on news cycles and sources from overseas. But I reckon for a small second there, Olgun, Perth Wildcats fans would have had their hearts in their mouths this morning when news was filtering through about Christian Doolittle playing in Puerto Rico and a serious injury. Pleasingly, it doesn't sound as though it's that serious.
Yeah, those fears have been assuaged. The initial word that started to trickle out of Puerto Rico, and everyone thought this. There were players, there were front office people around Puerto Rico who were thinking that Christian Doolittle had suffered a serious injury. It then started we realized that it wasn't as serious as first thought. I'm told he got an ultrasound and it revealed that there were no tears, and so he suffered an ankle injury that may have him out for a little bit. I'm told he's now day-to-day, but this was a non-contact lower leg injury that a lot of people were concerned about. I definitely jumped the gun with putting some information out there. I tried to keep it as open-ended as possible, but now I've done my best to sort of make sure that it is known out there that this is an ankle injury for Christian Doolittle. Perth Wildcats fans should not be concerned in the long term in any way, and just thankfully he is not seriously injured. It sounds like this is a minor thing.
I'd heard the same thing. And again, the time difference being so far away, you've got players there who everybody's talking. You start to think the worst, and especially what Perth have been through recently. So glad to hear that's the positive thing for Perth Wildcats fans, because I don't want to put away locks because I'm not willing to walk anywhere like Derek Rucker still has. But he's an all-NBL player next year. Whether it's first team or second team, we'll figure it out. But he's that important to their success.
Yeah, I wouldn't sweat it, Olgun. This happens in every line of work when you're getting information from the other side of the world. Sometimes it's not always 100% spot on first up. Just a question, and again, I've been away for a week, so I've been sitting back as a bit of a neutral observer in the last few days watching. David Johnson lands at the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, and this is a really good signing. He's really exciting, and 24 years of age. I think Scott Roth's going to have a lot of fun with this guy, but you would think he plays the 2, maybe the 3. Sean McDonald starts. Are we thinking that this is the end of Milton Doyle as a Jack Jumper?
It's not the end. Olgun might know more, but from what I've heard, this conversations are still ongoing with Milton Doyle. Now, I am told there's at least one other team that is really deep in talks with him as well. So the likelihood that we'll see Milton Doyle in the NBL seems to very much be increasing by the day. With Tasmania, I'm not so sure. They still have the conversation. They still have the desire to come to some sort of agreement, but they're not alone. I could see them playing alongside each other for sure. And again, I saw something online that I kind of clarified as well. They'll be going in with 2 imports to start, unless something drastically changes. With some of the significant injury history they have, Magnay, Bannon, Sean McDonald, I know, was probably an anomaly. We don't see that in his career too often. Having an import spot up their sleeve in case they need to use it to cover for that could be crucial for them. But I like the rest of the pieces they've put. Whoever they get to nail, and hopefully for Tassie fans, it is Milton Doyle. But if it's not, I think David Johnson's going to be great. And whoever they would then get alongside him, I think would be really formidable.
Yeah, the elevation of Stoddart, I thought was interesting because what I'd heard is that they'd go after sort of 2 wing imports, and Milton Doyle would be one of those guys, and then a backup combo type. Now it just looks like Stoddart is elevated, and it's basically their starting lineup is Sean McDonald, wing David Johnson, and then Bannon Magnay, and the other wing in our mind would be Milton Doyle if they're able to get that done. So I think the expectation is that Johnson and Doyle could play alongside each other. And that's the type of player that we thought they needed. Someone who can really shoot the ball. We felt like they needed some shooting, and you know, there's a high level player in David Johnson there. I think he would. We don't get to see high level wings in the NBL as far as these like off ball players. Milton Doyle is almost an anomaly. We've seen some in the past, but usually it's high level point guards that we're seeing. So I'm excited to see what Johnson can bring.
It's exciting times. All of a sudden, in the last 10 days, things have gone from just sort of floating along at a steady pace to, well, it's almost by the minute our phones are going with things that are happening right now. So more to watch when it comes to the Adelaide 36ers, a lot more to watch very soon from the sounds of it when it comes to the Cairns Taipans, and a whole lot more still to come. NBL Marketplace is, of course, your home for all the latest news and information. You can follow both of these gentlemen on Twitter, and you can also jump online the NBL app to find out the latest news. Don't make too many plans, you two. I get the feeling that we might be getting back together soon.
Now, firstly, you're not one to talk, but congratulations on the surprise wedding as well that got done last week. We're all running around trying to get the Bryce Cotton news. You're off tying the knot, so congratulations. It's good to have you back.
Thank you. Friday morning, I'm sort of in the midst of doing a surprise wedding and have my phone vibrating in my pocket every 5 seconds. So to my now new wife, she's like, "Who's ringing you?" So now
It was worth it.
know why. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. We'll catch you next time on NBL Marketplace, but it's a busy time, so don't go too far.